Are master's degrees worth it? Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'm not talking about those master's degrees that are mandatory for the job, like to become a physician's assistant or a university instructor. Rather, I'm talking about the master's degrees in the social sciences and humanities that can set you apart when looking for a job, but aren't strictly necessary for that job. Also, if you think the whole institution of master's degrees is a money-grabbing scam, you may be onto something, but more on that later. So in this video, I will cover first, master's degrees, what they are, what's the actual point of them. Second, the costs versus the benefits of master's degrees. Third, the question of whether master's degrees are actually worth it or whether they're just a total scam. And fourth and finally, just some other things to consider before pursuing a master's degree.
And some disclaimers. Master's degrees, that's your personal decision. These are just my thoughts, my opinions, and some things I found online. At the end of the day, this is just for entertainment purposes.
And finally, because vlogging is my passion, I'm also going to shoot some of this video here on UCLA's campus. Hi, I'm Taylor, and I have a master's degree, but now that I'm several years out, I kind of think maybe I got it for the wrong reasons, and I want to get into that later.
With student debt at over $1.7 trillion in the US, and with a competitive job market, you may be wondering whether getting a master's degree is really worth it. If you check out the backgrounds of a few notable billionaires, you'll see that many stopped at their bachelor's, while others dropped out before graduating. Yet, article after article will inform you that getting a master's degree will increase your earnings potential. But is it really so smart to take out tens of thousands more in debt rather than just start working?
So at this point, you're probably not asking yourself, what is a master's degree anyway? And I say this because I feel most of us just intuitively accept that it's a step above a bachelor's degree and a step below a PhD, which means what can a master do that a bachelor can't and maybe a PhD can?
Does a master's degree simply mean that you have a deeper knowledge in the field, a deeper level of specialization? And if so, how do you even measure that, considering that universities are not at all created equal?
The history of the master's degree is murky. Apparently, the term master's degree emerged in the Middle Ages. Originally, it was the title conferred onto graduates when they began to teach, so it just meant a teacher with certain qualifications. However, later it also became its own distinct degree, and in some parts of the world was used to replace some doctorate programs, which were already suffering from conceptual overstretch at the time.
However, what is undeniable is how popular master's degrees have become. In particular, I found this academic article from 1938 that questions the whole concept of master's degrees.
Specifically, it says that the number of master's degrees awarded in the United States increased significantly from 1,744 in 1900 to 19,339 in 1932, and that this was primarily driven by secondary school teachers seeking advanced qualifications.
One reason that the article gives for the rise in master's degrees is that some states were requiring that secondary school teachers have them. However, despite the growth of the degree in the United States, the purpose of the master's degree wasn't always clear.
At different institutions, the degrees serve different functions, including preparing students for doctoral studies, providing professional accreditation for teachers, like I said. Also, some degrees just gave students a certain degree of specialization. It was a marker saying, hey, you learned enough, you are now a master. And some will say that the master's degree, even in the early times, was just a marketing tool for universities to retain students and enhance their reputations. Because there just wasn't a consensus on what master's degrees were supposed to do, there was a growing concern even in the 1930s about the rigor and consistency across master's degree programs, which 90 years later still lives on.
Which is all to say, if you're not totally sold on the utility of master's degree programs, you're in the majority. And today, things are still pretty murky because there aren't objective standards for what we expect a master's graduate to be able to achieve.
And I say this because objective standards are important. Once you graduate high school, your state has a set of standards that you should be able to read at this level, do math at this level, etc. And we don't really have that for higher education. Sure, there are standards within universities, but widely, they're not objective, and that's not bad, but it kind of brings into it the question, what can a master's student achieve that a bachelor's student can't?
So if you clicked on this video for the numbers, then let's get into it. The average debt burden that master's students carries is...
And pause, because I see numbers thrown around left and right online, and they don't tell you much. For example, is the amount of debt incurred measured at the time of graduation before the students get a job? 5 years down the line, who are the students surveyed? What degrees did they get? Does this number include those who graduated without debt because maybe they got a full scholarship or parental assistance?
Regardless, this source seems to be more reliable and shows that student debt for master's degree holders was roughly between $55,000 and $75,000, depending on the degree and the institution.
And please note that all of the numbers come from the pre-pandemic years.
However, scholarships do exist, But it's worth noting that students who do get scholarships are more often in bachelor's programs and in PhD programs. So that's really good to know if you're thinking about funding your master's degree all by yourself. And here are some quick stats.
More often than not, master's degrees tend to be self-funded, unlike undergraduate degrees, and master's degree students are more likely to take out loans to finance their education, and receive less aid on average than undergraduate or doctoral students.
This is kind of depressing.
Just want to pause and say that this is a beautiful campus.
UCLA's tuition costs are somewhat in line with the national average. So let's just say on average, based on this one source I found online, it's between $22,320 a year and $35,570 a year. Also, there's another big cost of master's degrees that I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about, and these are the opportunity costs, meaning the cost incurred by pursuing one option over the other option.
Basically saying, what are you sacrificing to do one thing over the other? So in the case of a master's degree, the opportunity cost could be if you're a full-time student and you don't have time and energy to pursue full-time work, that means your 2 years of being a master's student comes at the cost of potentially 2 years of full-time employment. And full-time employment could be 2 years experience, 2 years salary, maybe a better social life. And it's just kind of thinking,
is the opportunity cost worth it to you? It says you're a Princeton University graduate with a master's in, medieval studies.
Well, I think we can both agree that at times the academic grind is more rigorous than a 9-to-5.
But you've never worked a day in your life.
Yes, and why not start now?
Right, well, I have 19 other candidates applying for this position, and you're the only one without work experience.
Wait, I thought this was an entry-level job.
Feel free to submit again in a few years. Bye-bye now. So in lieu of job experience, and in addition to knowledge, another thing that master's degrees can lend you is credibility. All things being close to equal, a master's degree can make you stand out among your peers without a master's degree if you're applying for the same job. Additionally, this credibility can go even further if you end up graduating from a school with national or regional prestige.
Like UCLA. I didn't go here. It's a beautiful campus, and it's number one, apparently. Studies and anecdotal evidence has shown that certain companies do tend to hire alumni from certain universities. And this could be because they have an affinity to that university, as in maybe they are an alumni there, but also just because of the reputation that certain schools have. So in this sense, a master's degree at one university could mean more depending on where you want to end up working. So that's just something to keep in mind. Because bias exists, and it's better to just acknowledge it and consider it than ignore it. Because America wants to be a meritocracy. They can't.
Another benefit of getting a master's degree is that in some professions, they're seen as the new bachelor's. So if you have one, it can give you a competitive edge over those without a master's degree.
Okay, but you can easily get knowledge outside of a master's degree program.
Okay, yes, but at the master's level, you're taking a full course load and are forced to write essays, take tests, and do all the hard, boring, and let's be honest, sometimes irrelevant stuff that you probably wouldn't do outside of a university setting.
So you don't think I could learn as much at home?
Well, I mean, you could, technically, but when you're at home, you might not get a full education. You could just be more selective in what you choose to learn.
So my education's invalid because I only choose to learn what's important, relevant, and fulfilling to me?
No, that's not what I said. I just meant... So, don't you think there are other ways to become well-rounded outside of a $60,000 degree? Okay, you're purposely misunderstanding me. So, you invalidate my... And you say so a lot.
Yeah, you say so a lot. It's really annoying.
Are you trying to make this awkward now? It feels awkward now.
honestly, my situation is kind of cliche because I applied for a master's degree for all the quote-unquote wrong reasons. I loved learning and didn't want to get a job.
Get your up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to attend a 2-year program. More on that here in my other video. And I absolutely loved it. I loved being on campus. I loved being with other people who were interested in learning the same things that I was. And I'm very happy and grateful for my experience. But I know that my experience isn't everyone's experience. And there are a lot of people who graduate happy, fulfilled, employed, without debt, and that's awesome. But there are a lot more who end up in other which ways, and I just went down the Reddit rabbit hole.
Are master's degrees worth it? A Reddit rabbit hole. Getting my MS has been the best decision I have made so far, TBH.
Skills, experience will be the new currency, not institutional accreditation.
Not worth the money. I couldn't find a by entry-level job upon graduating because most of them wanted experience.
Engineering undergrad. Work paid for my MBA. Worth every penny they spent after my 3-year commitment.
When someone else pays for it, yes.
My work is paying for mine or I wouldn't bother.
Also, I just want to say I didn't successfully get a full-time job after graduating from my master's degree, and I can blame myself, I can blame my program, I can blame the economy, I can blame the employers.
But no, it's probably no one's fault. I just wanted to stress that master's degrees aren't like the make it or break it for most people. They could be in your situation. I don't know. I just want to share.
In my case, I had a master's degree and then got an admin job. And I do think the degree helped, but it wasn't strictly necessary because after I left the job, they filled the position with someone who came straight out of college. Which is fine. It just shows I didn't need it. And then after that, I went to a PhD program, and I'm pretty sure my master's degree helped me get into the PhD program. However, there were also people in my program that came in with a bachelor's and without a master's, and probably also work experience, which is just to say, your master's degree can take you places, but it doesn't mean it will. But it can. The educational landscape has changed so much in the past 10 years. So when I was a student, you could do internships.
They could come at the sacrifice of graduating on time or your whole summer vacation. However, now more and more universities are leaning towards experiential learning, which is a sort of hands-on, get experience while getting education sort of learning. And a lot of times this can just look like internships that are a part of your educational curriculum. So this could be taking fewer classes and doing more work experience. Sometimes they're structured educational work experiences. Now we have these bachelor's programs that are allowing students to graduate with maybe already a year or two of work experience. I feel like for years and years and years, there have been this complaint that we've been in school for so long and entry-level jobs want you to have so much experience, and now you can get both. And this isn't at all universities. This might not be great for every single student out there, but it's just worth looking into if you want to be even more prepared by the time you graduate.
Also, at the end of the day, higher education is a big business, so it's not going anywhere. However, of course, the technology gap is closing, and there are more ways to get certifications, licenses, and just general knowledge from the comfort of your own home and without paying university tuition. Also, really, I just want everyone to appreciate how much technology and society has moved forward, because this was the literacy rate just a few generations back, which is wild.
So don't take education for granted, even if you don't want a master's degree, even if you don't want a bachelor's degree. I just think there's a place for education in our society. And
in conclusion, master's degrees exist, and they can be perfect for you and help you accomplish all of your professional dreams. However, they can also fall short of expectations.
And there's also the question of, if I get in and it's the perfect school and if it's the perfect program, should I go? Even if I don't have a scholarship, are all the loans worth it? And so many people will tell you,
yes, do it. Your earning potential will be higher. And then so many more will say, no, don't do it. I did it and I'm still paying it off. So it's just hard and stressful. So what do? It's a personal decision. But seriously, if you get nothing else from this video, please just consider the financial cost, because I've met people in their 30s who are delaying major, important, special life moments like marriage, a home, and children because they want to pay off all their student loans first, and that just kind of makes me sad. So it's a big decision, and that's, if nothing else, what I just kind of wanted to stress in this video.
And sure, some educational programs are a total joke, I assume, and a money grab, so do your research, but there are also a lot of high-quality programs out there.
And the right answer is one that allows you to live your most fulfilled life. And, you know, you could do that with a degree and you can do that without a degree. So it's up to you.
And at the end of the day, I'm just a woman on YouTube, so don't take me too seriously. So thanks for joining.